Hey, come sit by the campfire with me. I'm Chantelle Lewis Lambert, founder of Raw and Reconnected, creator of the Roots Method, and host of The Messy Magic of Being Human. This is where we talk about the brain, nervous system, relationships, identity, behavior, and all the weird shit that comes with being human. It's not from a place of judgment, and it's not from a place of pretending that we've got everything figured out, because around this campfire, there is no shame, only curiosity. Because the more that we understand ourselves, the less we have to judge ourselves. So, grab a coffee, grab a beer, throw another log on the fire, or maybe you're driving to work right now, maybe you're walking the dog, maybe you're doing the dishes, maybe you're sitting in your truck in the driveway because you told everybody you were going to the store, but really you just needed 10 fucking minutes where nobody asked you for anything. I may have been there once or twice. Wherever you're listening from, I am glad you're here. So if you listen to episode 2, you've already met Frank. Frank hangs out in our Watchtower, our forest Watchtower up in our brain. Frank represents those fast protective systems that are constantly paying attention to what's happening around us and asking, is there something here I need to worry about? And sometimes Frank sees a fat squirrel and reacts like it's a goddamn grizzly bear. We also met our forest guide. The guide represents those systems that help us slow things down, consider context, plan, reflect, and make more intentional decisions. So just a reminder, Frank is the amygdala in our brain, and our forest guide, the guide, is actually our prefrontal cortex. So today we're leaving the Watchtower and we're heading down into the forest because I want to show you something. I want to show you a trail. Actually, probably a shitload of trails because you've got them everywhere. Your brain is made up of neural pathways that are connected, and there's so many of them. So you've got them everywhere, and so do I. So let me ask you something. Have you ever known exactly what you should do and then watched yourself do the complete fucking opposite? Seriously. You know you should go to bed. You're exhausted. You tell yourself, tonight I'm going to bed early. 11 o'clock rolls around. You're actually lying in bed. The phone is 6 inches from your face. You are watching a video of some guy restoring a rusty lawnmower. And, you don't even own a lawnmower and you don't give a shit about the lawnmowers. However, you're still watching this video. And somehow your brain is like, we need to know how this ends. Or maybe you've decided, I need better boundaries. So you've read the books, you've watched the videos, you've saved 17 inspirational posts that say things like, no is a complete sentence. Fuck yeah. You're empowered. You're ready. You are ready. Then somebody calls and they say, hey, could you help me with something on Saturday? Well, your mouth goes, absolutely. Meanwhile, inside your head, well, that's a completely different story. You're screaming. Why did we say yes? I tell you, the brain. Or here's another one. How about this one? Have you ever had this one happen? You're in an argument with your partner, okay? And you've promised yourself, next time this happens, I am going to stay calm. You have promised yourself you're going to listen. You're going to communicate. You're going to use all those wonderful, emotionally mature skills that you've been learning on Instagram. Then they use that tone. And suddenly, all your emotional intelligence packs a suitcase and leaves the fucking country. 10 minutes later, you're arguing about something that happened in 2017. You don't even know how you got there. You started talking about the dishwasher, and now somebody is yelling, and another thing. Oh, shit. Right? Once that and another thing comes out, we're officially off-roading. There ain't no coming back from that sometimes. Or maybe you don't yell, because there's this other thing that can happen. Maybe you shut down. Your partner says something like, can we talk about this? And everything inside of you goes, Nope. Just nope. You get quiet, so quiet, and you just stare at the phone and almost kind of pretend that they're not there. And you suddenly become super incredibly interested in whatever is on that screen. So your partner's over there trying to have an emotional conversation, and you're like, wow, I wonder how this episode of Storage Wars ends. Different behavior, but same question. Why do we keep doing things we know are not helping us? And this is where people start beating the shit out of themselves. They'll come up with all sorts of things. I have no willpower. I sabotage everything. I'm lazy. I'm weak. Why can't I just change? I know better. And that last one, I hear that one all the time. I know better. Okay. That's usually my response. Okay. But knowing and doing are not the same thing. If knowledge automatically changed behavior, then none of us would eat chips at 11 o'clock at night because we know that you're just going to store it. We wouldn't do it. But you know what? We do know. And we know that vegetables are good for us. We know that sleep matters. We know that movement matters. We know that yelling doesn't improve communication. And we know scrolling our phones for 2 hours before bed isn't going to make us feel fantastic. Humans know all kinds of shit. And then we do something completely different. Why? Well, it's because behavior isn't driven by information alone. It's actually influenced by learning, context, emotion. There's a bunch of shit that goes into this. Whether or not it's a reward. Stress influences this. Like behavior is influenced by stress and habits, our past experiences, even our nervous systems. And then we always come upon this one where people don't really put too much into it. They don't quite understand how important it is. And that's repetition. So that brings us to hiking trails, right? You're kind of like, what the fuck? Why are we talking about hiking trails? I thought we were talking about the brain. Well, imagine you're standing at the edge of a thick bush, okay? There's no trail. And you decide, I'm going through there. So the first trip that you take through there sucks. You're stepping over logs, branches are smacking you in the face, you're getting scratched. You got spider webs stuck to your forehead. At some point, you're probably questioning, why the hell didn't you just stay at home? But you keep walking. And then you do it again tomorrow and again and again. Eventually, the grass starts getting flattened. The branches, well, they break or you move them out of the way. You move a log so it's easier to get through. You remember where the wet spot is so you don't sink anymore. And after enough trips through, there's actually a trail. Now, imagine beside it, okay, there's another path that you've actually walked for 20 years. It's a wide path. It's clear. It's very well, you can see it. It's packed down. It's well maintained. You could probably walk it in the dark. Which one is your brain going to prefer to take? It's usually it'll take the familiar one. So that's our hiking trail metaphor. Your brain isn't literally full of tiny dirt paths, but repeated experiences and behaviors can strengthen patterns across neural networks, and it makes certain responses increasingly efficient or automatic. Our brains are incredibly good at learning, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, let's think about driving. Do you remember learning to drive? Boy, I tell ya. Hands at 10 and 2, right? And then the mirrors, got to be checking them every 5 seconds or whatever it is nowadays. The speed, got to keep an eye on that speedometer, at least you should try. Brake, pedal, gas, what? Signal lights, windshield wipers, ever have that happen? You go to hit the signal light, you turn on the windshield wiper instead. Signs, you got to watch for them. Then you got to figure out where everybody else is on the road. You also have to think about their driving. And you got to ensure that, you don't hit anything, you don't kill anybody, your brain is working overtime. Now, say you've been driving for 20 years, and suddenly you arrive home and you kind of think, I don't remember half of that drive. How the hell did I get here? That's how efficient your brain can become with practice behaviors. You don't want to consciously relearn how to use a fork every time you eat dinner. You want it to be automatic because automatic is useful. The problem is, though, that your brain can actually become so efficient at creating patterns and completing them that they're not helping you anymore. Something goes wrong, you blame yourself. Maybe your trail is more like this. You feel insecure, you seek reassurance. Or maybe it's someone needs something, you automatically say yes. Or how about this type of trail? You make a mistake and you call yourself an idiot. Or you receive a compliment and you immediately shut it down. So somebody says, you look great, and you go, oh, no, I don't. I'm so exhausted. Why do we do that? Someone just handed you something nice and your brain threw it back at them. And your brain was like, absolutely fucking not. So try this sometime. Somebody compliments you and just say thank you. Then you have to sit with the horrifying discomfort for 4 seconds. But that's a new trail that you're going to start to make. Because receiving that compliment, whether you realize it or not, your brain actually finds that as a reward eventually. So that couple seconds of discomfort actually allows for growth. And that is, like I said, a new trail. And here's something else I really want you to understand. Not every old trail is bad. Some old trails are fantastic. Maybe you automatically put your seatbelt on, great trail. Maybe when your kid gets hurt, you instinctively comfort them, beautiful trail. Maybe when you're overwhelmed, you learn to go outside and walk, useful trail. We're not trying to bulldoze your entire forest. We're actually asking which trails still serve me. And then we're saying which ones am I walking simply because they're familiar. Those are very different questions. So let me tell you about someone. We're going to call her Melissa. Melissa was one of those people everybody loved having around. She was a mom, wife, friend, coworker, reliable as hell. If you needed someone to organize something, Melissa was your girl. Needed cupcakes for the school fundraiser? Give her a call. Needed somebody to take the kids somewhere, drive them all? No problem, she's on it. What about if you needed someone to cover your shift? Well, she even did that at work. Yeah, and another thing that she found herself doing was listening to people complain about their husbands or significant others for hours. Again, there's Melissa. Did you need help moving a couch? Because fuck it, just call Melissa. She'll probably show up with snacks too. Everybody said Melissa's amazing, and Melissa was amazing. But she was also exhausted, overwhelmed, and she was starting to resent everybody. And then that made her feel guilty, because these were people she loved. So she'd think, what the hell's wrong with me? There's that question again. Nothing. So let's get curious. Melissa knew about boundaries. That's what made this so frustrating. She knew she should say no. She'd literally tell her friends, you need better boundaries. Then somebody would ask her for something and it came out, sure. That is human. We're brilliant at giving advice from the outside of somebody else's forest. It's much harder when we're standing inside our own. So we slowed it down. We actually started talking about what happens, what actually happened when someone asked her for something. Before the yes, before the resentment, before the exhaustion. What happened? Well, she said her stomach tightened, thoughts showed up. What if they're disappointed? What if they think I'm selfish? They need me. I should help. What if nobody else does it? And then the yes would come out. There was the trail. Request, discomfort, fear of disappointing someone, say yes, temporary relief, and then resentment. And when we started looking at where that trail came from, it absolutely made more sense. Melissa had learned very early in her life that being helpful got rewarded. She was the easy kid, the responsible kid, the mature kid, helpful. People praised that. And over time, being useful became tangled up with being valued. So saying no wasn't simply, I don't have time Saturday. Her nervous system could experience it more like, if I'm not useful, will people still value me? Well, shit. Now we're not talking about cupcakes anymore. We're actually talking about belonging. This is why I want people to stop calling themselves stupid for repeating patterns. The pattern often makes sense somewhere. That doesn't mean that we need to keep it forever. Hell no. But understanding where it came from gives us something useful to work with. So with Melissa, we didn't start with say no to everybody, because honestly, if someone had spent 40 years keeping everybody happy and then going home and suddenly saying, fuck all of you, I'm boundaried now, deal with it, it probably isn't the most sustainable intervention. So we started with one sentence. Let me check and get back to you. That's it. So somebody asks, can you help Saturday? The old trail would have automatically been, sure. But the new trail is, let me check and get back to you. It's such a tiny step. It's almost like boring. But that little sentence created something that Melissa hadn't had before, space. Space for the forest guide to enter the conversation, so the prefrontal cortex, our thinking mind, to come into the conversation and to ask, do we have the capacity to do this? Do I actually want to do this? Am I saying yes from generosity or fear? And sometimes the answer was yes, because Melissa genuinely liked helping people. We weren't trying to remove that part of her. We were just giving her a choice. And sometimes the answer actually became, I can't this weekend. And guess what happened the first time? She felt like shit. I'm serious. She didn't walk away going, I have discovered my power. She walked away thinking, oh my God, they're going to think I'm an asshole. Her stomach was uncomfortable. She replayed the conversation. She wanted to send another message saying, actually, never mind, I can do it. And that's important. Because sometimes when we begin changing, we interpret discomfort as proof that we're doing something wrong. But new can feel uncomfortable simply because it's new. Unfamiliar isn't automatically unsafe, and guilt doesn't automatically mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes guilt shows up because you've violated an old rule. And Melissa's old rule was simple. Good people don't disappoint anyone. That's an impossible fucking rule. You will disappoint people. I will disappoint people. People will disappoint us. That's relationships. The goal isn't never disappoint anyone. The goal is, can I make choices that align with my values and capacity, even when somebody else doesn't love them? That's a new trail. And here's another trail that might hit home. Let's talk about rest. How many of you sit down and immediately think of something you should be doing? You finally get 20 minutes, you make a coffee, you sit on the couch, and within 30 seconds your brain goes, laundry. You look at the laundry, fuck. Then kitchen, emails, that thing you've been putting off. Maybe I should clean the bathroom. And suddenly your 20 minutes of rest is turned into a guilt meeting with yourself. Why? Maybe somewhere in your forest, somewhere in that brain, rest got connected with laziness. Maybe you grew up hearing, don't just sit there, make yourself useful. There's always something to do. Maybe everybody around you was constantly busy and your brain learned that if you're productive, you're good. Resting is for the lazy. So now your body can be absolutely exhausted and you still struggle to stop. That's a trail. And again, the new trail isn't necessarily quit your job and spend the rest of your life in a hammock. Although some days that does sound absolutely fucking fantastic. Maybe the new trail is, I can sit here for 10 minutes without earning it. And your nervous system may hate that at first, and that's okay. You're practicing. This is where neuroplasticity gives us hope. Our brains remain capable of changing with experience, but neuroplasticity doesn't mean I thought differently once, therefore my entire nervous system has been rewired. Hell no, that's Instagram neuroscience, friends. Real change is usually much less glamorous. You have to notice, pause, try something different, screw it up, notice again, try again, old trail, new trail, old trail, old trail, new trail, old trail. And then one day, something happens and you realize, holy shit, I responded differently. That's the magic. Not because the old trail disappeared, but because the new trail became available. And this is exactly why Roots starts with regulate. When you're highly activated, the familiar trail can feel incredibly compelling. So regulate. Then observe. What am I doing? What happened right before this? What am I feeling? Then own. Not this is all my fault, but this is my pattern and I'm responsible for what I do with it. Then transform. Take one step on the new trail. And finally, sustain. Walk it again and again and again, not perfectly, consistently enough that your brain gets new information. So here's today's trail marker. I want you to catch one old trail, not 27. We're not renovating the entire forest this weekend. Fuck no. Just one. Maybe you automatically apologize. You ever meet those people that immediately that you're like, oh, yeah, I just moved that over here. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. And it had nothing to do with them, but they apologize for everything. Maybe you get defensive. Or maybe you say yes constantly, even though you mean no. Maybe you shut down whenever there's conflict. Or maybe you catastrophize everything. Maybe you talk yourself out of trying things because you know you might fail, or you just assume you're going to fail. Or how about maybe, this is one that I see often, you make jokes every time a conversation gets emotional. Or the one where people immediately assume someone's upset with them, no matter what. And maybe you refuse help because I can do it myself. Whatever yours is, when you notice it, don't say, for fuck's sakes, I'm doing it again. Instead say, oh, there's that old trail. That's curiosity. And then ask, what does this trail usually protect me from? And next, you would ask, where would I like the new trail to go? You don't even have to walk it perfectly yet. Just find the entrance. There's something I really want you to hear before we finish today. You are going to walk old trails again. I do. Everybody does. Knowing about your nervous system doesn't magically remove your humanity or years and years and years of wiring. Knowing about neuroscience doesn't mean you'll never lose your shit. Trust me, I teach this stuff, and apparently I'm still capable of nearly throwing fishing rods into lakes. The goal is not perfection. The goal is that eventually you'll notice sooner. Maybe before you walked that old trail for 5 years, and then it was 5 months, and then it was 5 days, and then 5 hours, and eventually, maybe you catch yourself 5 minutes in. And one day, you might be standing at the entrance thinking, nope, I know where this bastard goes. And then you choose another direction. That's growth. Sometimes growth isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's simply, I handled that differently than I used to. And nobody else may even notice, but you will, and your body will. That's what becoming the forest keeper means. You don't hate the forest you inherited. You learn it. You understand it. You tend to it. Some trails you keep, and some need maintenance, and some have served their purpose. And some, you just slowly let the forest reclaim them, and then you start building new ones. Not because the old you is broken. No, because the person you are today gets to decide where you're going next. So, my friends, take a deep breath, unclench your jaw, let your shoulders soften and drop down away from your ears. Feel your feet underneath you, and notice you're here. Remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. Every challenge you faced, every lesson you learned, and every step you've taken has shaped the person you are today. Keep tending to your roots, because everything that grows above the surface begins below it. There is beauty in the struggle. There is wisdom in uncertainty. There is growth in discomfort. And there is always a little magic waiting to be found in the mess. Because that, my friends, is the messy magic of being human. Thanks for sitting by the fire with me, and this week, when you find yourself halfway down that same old damn trail, don't turn around and kick your own ass for getting there. Just stop. Look around, maybe laugh a little, and ask, where do I want to put my foot next? Hopefully it's not in your own mouth, but ask, where do I want to put my foot next? Because you don't have to change the whole trail today. You just have to take the next step. So I'll see you next week around the fire. Have a wonderful day.